Take a magical journey with us to Australia's Great Barrier Reef. Our journey to Brisbane, Australia was undertaken with Malaysia Airlines and firstly took us from Bangkok to Kuala Lumpur. Well, we are well and truly on our way to Brisbane, but our first stop is Malaysian Airlines Oasis right here, the Golden Lounge at KL International Airport. Australia is one of Malaysia Airlines' most popular destinations, with 61 weekly flights, 3 of those to Brisbane, capital of the northeastern state of Queensland. From there, our next stop was a 2-hour flight further north to the tropical city of Cairns, where our vessel, the Coral Princess, was waiting.
We'll lose the 4-spring first, please, Gary. Roger, coming into the channel. Well done, chaps. Good job.
Isn't this stunning? Well, we've embarked on an 8-day, 7-night cruise with the lovely Coral Princess. Our journey will take us to some of the most beautiful islands and coral formations in Australia's Great Barrier Reef. It promises to be a journey that's laid back and leisurely, with a touch of adventure and the chance of making a few new friends along the way. Our travels on this journey would take us to several reefs and islands south of Cairns. We were plying the waves with over 40 fellow travellers and around 13 crew. Over more than 30 years, the multi-award-winning Coral Princess cruises have reached the pinnacle of small ship expedition.
Welcome on board the Coral Princess.
As soon as you get underway, it's time for a briefing and a chance to meet the crew, greet each other, and in this case, to introduce our camera team. Coral Princess is luxury on a compact scale, a 35-metre catamaran that has both stability in the water and a shallow draft, making it easy to access coral reefs. 25 roomy cabins accommodate up to 50 guests. There's an open door policy on the bridge, and you can ask the captain, "Are we there yet?" Now, what can you tell me about the boat? Is it a catamaran?
Yes, so we're on a motor catamaran. Actually, there's 3 hulls built of this vessel. They were built out of Mackay back in the late 80s. This ship was born in 1988.
Right.
And she has 2 sister ships, and I've actually served on the other 2 as well. The sister ship to this one serves on the Barrier Reef, and the other one is round on the west coast. Now, she's a 35-metre catamaran, luxury built coastal cruise liner. And she has been doing this section of the world since she was born, and I imagine and I hope she'll be here till the end of her day.
Oh, we've had pretty good conditions so far. Is this what it's usually like?
Well, actually, we've had some quite varied conditions, to be fruitfully honest. We've had northerly winds. Now, northerly winds in this section, and this section of the world here, we've got a prominent southeasterly trade wind that blows up and through and across the reef, providing you shelter on this side of the reef, and this side has swell and sea blowing over the top of it, which has been nicknamed in here either the weather edge or the wild side of the reef.
Right.
Now, today we're seeing northwesterly winds, so they're coming in from this direction. Okay, so we're going to the other end of the reef, to the other side, to the wild side of the reef.
And that's not today. So common, no?
No, it's not at all. This happens probably about 2 weeks a year. And you only come to these sections of the reef, on a very limited occasion, so very special actually.
So we've been very lucky.
Very lucky.
Those favourable winds ensured we had the best weather imaginable, with incredibly calm conditions. It was perfect for some fish feeding.
Keep your fingers out of the water, because that big black fish there sometimes will bite your fingers.
The water was so clear we could see all the fish, and no doubt they could clearly see all the treats we had in hand. But on a day like this, you can't waste any more time getting into the water. The experienced divers suited up, while those new to scuba had a few lessons on venturing beneath the sea. Then it was time to explore. Our first stop today is the Thetford Reef. It's absolutely gorgeous and the conditions today are perfect for snorkeling. So let's go. Even if you don't dive, snorkeling on Thetford Reef is just as magical, with stunning coral outcrops and a vivid array of sea life. For those who prefer to stay dry, the cruise has its own custom-built glass-bottom boat, and trip director Dennis McDowell offers a running commentary.
Also, they're discovering that corals are adapting to global warming.
It was then time to watch the sunset over the sea as we drifted by the family group of islands that were discovered and named by explorer Captain James Cook. The next morning, and we had arrived at Nathan Reef. It was time to suit up, breathe in, and descend to another wonderland. The Great Barrier Reef extends over 1,200 nautical miles. It's home to 1,500 species of fish and 400 species of coral, and is a World Heritage Site. The 35 million hectares spread of this marine national park is larger than the United Kingdom and teems with diversity. On this day, I caught a quick glimpse of a reef shark. Meanwhile, we were about to meet some of the marine life up close with Dennis's touch tank. Anyone for sea cucumber?
Give him a kiss.
Yeah, it's
Oh! Oh!
Our cruising continued. As the day ended, it was time to head to the dining room for cocktails and dinner. With 3 meals a day, plus morning and afternoon teas, the hardest working staff on board are in the kitchen. We were cruising through the southern Great Barrier Reef on the luxurious Coral Princess. It was morning and we had arrived at a lovely private island, this one leased by the cruise company itself. This whole area is dotted with gorgeous islands and you do have the opportunity to go ashore. This is Pelorus Island and we're here for a bit of a nature walk and some snorkeling. Pelorus is part of the Palm Island group, also discovered and named by Captain Cook. It is surrounded by fringing reefs and is an ideal spot for snorkeling, picnicking and even camping. We joined the island caretakers for a lazy few hours on the sand. Coral Princess's General Manager Mark Fifield had joined us on the beach.
Well, Pelorus is an island that we lease, and it's just part of the Palm group of islands, and we've got access to the small part of the beach here with a caretaker's house, and we use this as our lunching, barbecuing, and just beach snorkeling spot. So it's a reserve, and we're lucky enough to have sole access to it.
So it's nice every now and then to get off the boat, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Get onto some solid ground.
Absolutely. And for people that are not so comfortable in the water, it's a chance for them to have an easy swim off the beach and a snorkel and just relax.
Then it was time for an island bushwalk with Dennis.
This huge mound is actually a bird's nest created by the orange-footed scrub fowl. They are a megapode. Now what they do is they scrape the ground looking for grubs, and over the successive generations, so this is probably 10 or 15 years old, and they scrape all the earth and leaves into a huge mound. And what they do is they lay their eggs in the top, and cover them over. And the rotting leaf litter generates heat, which incubates the eggs.
We even stumbled across the rare rubber thong bush, a plant unique to Australia. The white sand beach is layered with coral fragments washed up from the reef, and Dennis is guaranteed to make a new discovery at every step.
See all these fine rocks here? It's pumice. There's a couple of big ones around here. Pumice. And pumice is from volcanoes, right? And Australia doesn't have any volcanoes, but there is some in Melanesia, New Guinea, Solomon Islands or whatever, and they spew out pumice, and that drifts across with the currents. Now pumice is basically gas bubbles impregnated through the rock. And if you feel that rock, it's really, really light. In fact, the only rocks I know that float.
After bushwalking, the best way to cool off was to head into the cool blue sea. Our vessel beckoned, and it was time to say goodbye and head from shore to ship. Up ahead was the magnificent Hinchinbrook Channel, which skirts between the mainland and Hinchinbrook Island, which is Australia's largest national park island. This long jetty is for loading sugar and is also a popular spot for fishermen. All around, soaring peaks plunge down to dense forests and thick twisted mangroves that provide the breeding grounds for many fish. My mum and I made the most of the boat's jacuzzi while we drifted through the narrow passage and learned some more about this region's unique ecosystems.
Aboriginal people used to think, or knew, that mangroves were a rich source of food. They would get mangrove worm from the branches. They break the branches to get mangrove worms. A lot of the trees have medicinal purposes. They break up off the leaves and crush them up to treat sores or whatever. There's shellfish when the tide goes out, mud crabs, and also Aboriginal people used to build a seawall, a fish trap, a circular wall coming out from the bank about mid-tide. So as the tide comes in, the water flows over the top, the fish will swim across. When the tide drops, those fish get caught in that pool.
This narrow mangrove-lined channel is a drowned river valley, and the slow journey across the shallow Lucinda Bar allowed some perfect time for bird watching and just simply chilling out. As the day drew to a close, we approached the lovely Dunk Island with fellow travellers from around the world.
We're on day 3 now, and I'm still trying to comprehend all I've seen. It's just the sights, the reef, the view, the ride. It's all been amazing. It's been such a teaching moment as well, because we've been taken through lots of information about the coral, the reef, the nature we've been through as well. So it's been a really, really complete experience.
It's fantastic. We've never been before, so we didn't know quite what to expect, but it's beyond everything we could imagine.
We had plans only to visit her in Perth, in Western Australia, but some friends of us told us that if you are in Australia, you must also go to the Great Barrier Reef. And then we start Google and found that from Cairns we can have a trip over it, and it's marvelous.
A lot of the islands here are rich with rainforests, so if you have the opportunity to take a tour, do so. Let's go. Dunk Island has some lovely rainforest trails.
Welcome to the Dunk Island rainforest. Isn't it magnificent? Look at these little palm trees everywhere. Little solitaire palms. And what happens in a rainforest is the canopy comes over quite thick and stops light coming to the forest floor. However, we don't have much of a canopy now because we had that very severe cyclone 3 years ago, and the canopy is slowly growing back. But a lot of these trees, palm trees as well, have adapted to living in a rainforest with a canopy, and they grow very, very tall, and you can see their stems growing right up so they can get to the light.
Dunk Island's first white resident, author E.J. Banfield, immortalised the escape through his book Confessions of a Beachcomber, and it's believed this island's natural beauty saved him from illness and prolonged his life. Well, it's not hard to see why, particularly when you add in some beach cocktails and canapes at sunset. A traditional Aussie barbecue was the perfect end to a perfect day. We were cruising through the southern areas of the Great Barrier Reef with Coral Princess. The next morning we were heading to shore again to a stretch of tropical green forest and dazzling white sand.
Our stop for today, the gorgeous Fitzroy Island.
Fitzroy is one of the best-known gateways to the southern reef. Its dazzling nudie beach is a popular stop for many tourists. The water here is crystal clear and ideal for snorkeling and swimming. If you can't resist a bushwalk, then there are several trails here, some more challenging than others, that will lead you around the rocky cliffs to some stunning viewpoints. Make sure you bring some sturdy walking shoes and some insect repellent.
Well, if you look around you, it's just amazing. There's beautiful coral-lined beaches, really clear water, nice coral, great fish life, and also it's got very, very good rainforest, so we can go some fantastic rainforest walks up around. If you're really keen on doing some longer walks, you can go up to the lighthouse or up to the very, very top of the island where there's a huge boulder. You can stand on the top and get a 360-degree view of the island and the sea around, and you can look out the Great Barrier Reef.
This is one of those places you just don't want to leave. Then it was back to the Coral Princess. Cairns was up ahead, and so too was our farewell to the first instalment of an amazing Great Barrier Reef journey. We had ventured here with fellow travellers from Thailand, including Alan, Tom and Pasit.
say 5-star plus. This is plus plus. It has been superb. I've done the cruise twice before. I did 4 days, liked the 4 days, 4 nights and 5 days, liked it so very much. I booked a second, which was earlier this year, and then we got invited to do promotional work, and they said, look, 4 and 3, not long enough, I think you should take the full 7. So the answer was yes, it has been fantastic. Everything about it, the people, the service, the vibe. And then you start meeting the people, mixing and matching. It takes a little time to reach out and say, hi, who are you, and I'm so-and-so. But by the end of the cruise, one really has made some new friends. Not all of them, but you sort of, your vibe picks up their vibe, and away you go.
For more information on Coral Princess Cruises, visit their website. Special thanks to Malaysian Airlines for getting us from Thailand to Australia.
Visit us on Facebook and tell us what you like. Or check out our website at www.destinationthailand.tv.
Our presenters have their hair cut, coloured and styled at Moga Salons, now available at 8 locations in Thailand. Our presenters use Philip B's organic skin and hair products, available now at the Emporium, Bangkok. This program was brought to you by South Point, Pattaya.